So today we're going to look at the Vantora UltraQD and how to service it. So the only actual service that you'll probably ever need to do to this darn thing is change the main O-ring. So the main O-ring that they're showing here on the diagram sits right behind the balls inside of the unit right in there. So that is the O-ring that gets most of the work from the fill nipple as it's filling each time. So if we look at the fill nipple, that O-ring sitting in there, when you engage, it pushes to there. That's what seals the unit so it can fill. So there's a lot of pressure on this thing, 3,000 psi, and in time they can wear out. So when they do, we just simply change it. So in order to change this, it's a pretty simple task. What we're going to do is we're going to have to do some disassembly to the unit. If this unit is on a hose, you can leave it engaged to the hose. This is the hose end where I have this blue plug. We'll call this the nipple end as we go through. So hose end, nipple end. So at the hose end, you can see there's this little piece here which houses one of the safety pins. So we need to remove this piece from the main shaft. We do that, and you can see we have it all written out with 9/16 wrenches. So we take a 9/16 wrench and we put it on this flat here. Then we take our other 9/16 wrench and put it on that flat and give them a little twist apart from each other. After you break them free, it should unscrew by hand very easily. If this is hooked on a hose, there's no parts to lose, actually, out of this end. This blue plug, if you didn't have that in there and you didn't have a hose in here, it is possible this pin could fall out. That pin is that pin right there. So if it does, make sure you keep track of it to put it back in later. I'm going to drop it in right now and put this blue plug back in. You get that blue plug when they're shipped to you, but if you've taken it out, piece of tape on there or leaving it on the hose, either way. So this is what we wanted. We wanted to get to this part here, which is our main filler end. You can see there's still a spring sitting inside here. That's this spring right here. So we can just grab him and remove him. And with him came this little piece up there. These separate. Okay, so this has a little ridge that captures the spring when it pushes in there. Okay, the balls will sit up about in here on this thing as it moves. They're going to connect. This piece, when we're putting them back in, will go pins. The holes will go in first. The spring goes at the bottom. So here's the hose end there, there's the nipple end. So we take all this out for now. If it gets stuck in there, you can just give it a little push and it will come right out. Okay, so don't lose any of these parts. We have this little part that's there. Now here is this part. Okay, so it's actually this with that still attached to it. The O-ring we want is right on in there. If we look, it's in here. I'll give you a closer view of that. That's that O-ring. What I'm pointing at right there, this flashing, that's the O-ring. So to remove him, if you take a straight point O-ring pick and you kind of try to get behind it, you'll probably end up just stabbing the O-ring, and that's okay because we're getting rid of it. So if I give a push and then push through, I've stabbed it and removed it all in one fell swoop there. So it may take you a couple of stabs in order to get it out, but now we have that O-ring out of there. The O-ring that we have in there is going to be a white one, but in order to make it easier to see for the video, I have a brown one in there. So the O-ring that we're going to replace it with is an 011, and this happens to be a urethane 011 90 durometer, which is a good O-ring. The urethane is very good against corrosion resistance. 90 durometer is the hardness of the O-ring, and harder O-rings are better for high pressure applications. Now, in order to put the O-ring back in, it has to seat into an internal groove in there, but there's a little secret for doing that. If you take a plain old Bic pen, here's a plain old round stick Bic, and I stick it on the back of the hose end of my little coupling. Then I take my O-ring and I just shove it in the nipple end. Just give it a little push in there. It's not going to go all the way in, but that's okay. Then if you take your tank, a tank or a fill nipple, we need to pull back on this coupling. Normally it starts in a back position, but the springs and connectors aren't all there to hold it. So we need to pull this back and then just push the nipple in. As you're pushing the nipple in, pull the pin out, and then it will snap into place and seat the O-ring automatically for you. So right now that O-ring seated in there, and that is all you have to do to replace that O-ring. Now we need to reassemble all the pieces. So I'm going to put this nipple side down and hose side up, and the first thing that goes in is this little piece here. The holes go in, the O-ring goes toward the hose end. So we're going to drop him in there, and he'll just sit right down in there. Then the spring will go in there. That spring is going to go right over this little round thing here. So when we're done putting it in, it's just going to grab onto there. And then our piece here, the safety pin, goes inside the spring, and then those two get screwed together. After we screw those together there, we just take our 9/16 wrenches and we put them on our two open flats and give them a good little torque together, and then we're ready to put it onto the hose. Then obviously check everything, make sure you have no leaks, and that everything works right. That's it. That's all there is to changing the O-ring in the UltraQD.